today we're talking about key 5, and that's building relationships. So really the purpose of LS Promotions is to build a relationship with our customers. Now, I like to liken the relationship between a marketer and their target customer to really going on a date. When you first start to talk to a customer, it's really like a first date. You don't really want to jump right into things. You kind of want to warm up a little bit. You kind of want to get to know each other a little bit. On the first date, you don't start telling your deepest, darkest secrets to the person that you're dating. If you do, that could be a little creepy. So again, in the marketing process, you kind of want to build up to it. You kind of want to treat that first date like it's something special, and really treat your target person or your target audience or ideal customer like there's something special. And as you begin to build that relationship, of course, it's going to change. Obviously, when I had my first date with my wife, it was a little bit different. We're both a little tentative and kind of shared some surface level details and got to know each other, and really shared a lot of new information with each other. But now that we've been married for over 8 years, it really doesn't make sense for us to have those kind of conversations like, where did you grow up and where did you go to school, and kind of getting to know you. And it's the same thing with your customers. If they're already a customer, you really need to treat them differently. And that's why I said earlier, when talking about traditional advertising, it's to promote image and awareness to new customers. So to send that kind of communication to somebody you already know, in some ways is insulting. If I start to have a conversation with my wife and explain to her, hey, did you know I grew up in St. Louis? She's going to look at me like I'm crazy. And it's really the same thing when you're talking with your customers. If you're doing your job well and you're building a relationship with them, the conversation should start to change, and you're going to get into different areas and hopefully a little bit deeper in your relationship with them. Now, we've all heard of the idea of a multiplier, and these are positive and negative. That means when a customer has a good experience with you, they're likely to tell other people, and it begins to multiply. It's called a positive multiplier. On the other hand, if they have a negative experience with you, they tend to tell that as well. So when you're working with your customer, it's talking about the satisfaction of a particular customer. It's more than just that person. It has to do with who else they're going to tell and how that's going to multiply either positively or negatively in the market. There's a concept that's been talked about lately called viral marketing, and it's really, we see this on a more massive scale where people are really telling each other more and more, and the internet has really facilitated this, how one idea can really spread from one group to another very quickly with the communication techniques we have available to us today. So when I'm talking about this and building a relationship with people, I like to use the image of a funnel, which I happen to have one right here. So if you're looking at marketing and you look at it like a funnel, there's different areas of the funnel when it comes to building a relationship with your customers. A lot of times, or what we see is up here in the mass market. That's the bigger area, and that's big mass advertising like Super Bowl ads, a great example of mass advertising. You're really going at a large portion of the market, a real mass audience, very top of the funnel, kind of an entry point into the funnel. Next down, you would have more of a segmented market where you're looking at, instead of just a huge, massive Super Bowl audience, maybe you're advertising on like the Oxygen channel, which is like a women's network, or ESPN, which is specifically a sports network. So you're starting to segment down a little bit more. You're getting a little bit more narrow in the funnel. As you move down even further, you can get into some more niche markets, so even more specialized. It's not a big, massive ESPN network, but maybe like the Hockey channel, or even a hockey magazine, or perhaps a women's magazine, or a cat fancy magazine. You're really starting to narrow more down in the funnel, and you can see how advertising in like cat fancy magazine, we're really targeting cat lovers. There might be some way up here in the mass on the top of the funnel that are cat lovers, but you're really focusing down here, and you're starting to build more of a relationship with them, and you can tailor your communications more towards that segment of the market. And then if you get down even further, you start to get into customized or one-to-one relationships with customers. And again, that's why we talked about why the internet is such a neat tool, because you can really start to customize the experience for each customer. This is also things like the neighborhood mechanic, Mike the mechanic, him on a one-to-one basis. You actually have a relationship with him. Or if you think of like Doc Baker or something like that. These are really strong relationships. So as you're going down the funnel, that's really where you want to be, is down here towards the bottom with your customers. You want to have that real personal relationship with them, where they know you by name, they trust you, they're using you on a regular basis. But you can go further than that. So you might have really strong customers, and because of that relationship, you have a protected relationship with them. But you can go even further down the funnel, where there's 3 levels of one-to-one relationships. You can have people that refer you, which is, the first level is a customer. So you have people that are actually going to use you as a loyal customer over and over again. And that's a great place to be with their customers, having repeat customers. They're very loyal to you. They're not going to change to your competitor. If you go down even further, you have somebody that will actually refer your product or service to other people. Even better, to be in this kind of relationship with your customer, that they're actually referring people to you. That's great. And that means if someone says, hey, where do you get your haircut? Or what doctor do you go to? Or what car dealership do you go to? Or where do you go shopping? They feel comfortable and say, hey, I'm going to tell them the name of this person or this product because I really believe in it. But even better than that, the very bottom of the funnel, and this is the goal of all your marketing activity, is to get as many people here as possible to be advocates. Advocates for your product. That means these people are so excited and so jazzed about you, your company, your product, that they are actively going out and telling people. They're actively recruiting people to come in and buy your product and build a relationship with you too. And that's where you want to be. So as we look at the whole funnel, this is our relationship funnel. Up here, mass audience, and again, think of like a Super Bowl commercial. Very expensive. Very expensive to be in this part of the funnel. A lot of waste. It's a mass audience. A lot of people are seeing your promotions that really don't care. It's going to have no effect on no matter what you do. So it's not a good place to be. And it's also very low relationship. In fact, if people are buying your product at this level, let's say they decide to buy your product because they saw a commercial, and that's the kind of relationship you have, it's not a very good relationship, because if they see a better commercial by your competitor, they're probably going to go switch to your competitor. So this is not a good place to be. But if you are going to enter the funnel here, you need to enter the funnel here for one reason or another, like you just don't have these connections yet or you're trying to get there, make sure that these promotions push people down the funnel. They push people to that next level. So if you are coming in at a higher level, those promotions are helping to build a relationship with customers and start to develop people down here where it's more one-to-one and where you can develop advocates. This is where you want to be, down at the bottom. You have a very strong relationship with your customers. It's a protected relationship with your customers. In fact, as advocates, they're actually actively promoting you. They're actually doing your work for you, and it's the least amount of cost, because you're not spending tons of money going after wasted exposure up here. So I would ask you to ask yourself Daehn's marketing question whenever you do any marketing promotions. And that marketing question is, will this promotion gain the maximum exposure to the target audience that builds a relationship while avoiding wasted exposure? I'll read it again. Will it gain the maximum exposure to the target audience that builds relationships while avoiding wasted exposure? So no matter what marketing promotion you're doing, you need to ask yourself that question. I'll also say that it's much less expensive to keep your current customers than to gain new customers. Now, a lot of organizations get so focused on getting new business and getting new customers that they ignore the customers that they have already. And a lot of this takes the form of poor customer service. Now, a good example of this are the cell phone companies. Now, what really drives mobile phone sales or mobile phone service, which is really what these companies are selling as a service, is the phones themselves. People tend to buy a plan based on what kind of phone they can get. So cell phone companies give discounts on their phones to new customers. So if you are already a customer for a particular service and you have a phone and you decide, hey, I don't like this phone or want to get a new phone, the only way to get a new one is to switch companies. So the whole industry is really set up focusing on getting new customers, or really in essence, stealing customers from other people, rather than having a similar promotion encouraging people to stay with their company. So why wouldn't you, as a cell phone company, encourage your current customers and say every year or two, give them that same discount to keep your plan, to keep your service? It's less expensive and you continue to build that relationship with them instead of going after new people in the market and trying to get them to switch from their old cell phone companies. Now in general, when we look at selling a product or doing marketing promotions, people tend to think in relationships as transactional, meaning I give you this, you give me that. I pay you this money and you give me that product. What I'm telling you to do is to have a different look at this. Instead of transactional, make it transformational, where you're actually providing something besides this or that relationship, where it's actually changing you a little bit to interact with your customers, and your customers are actually changing a little bit when they interact with you. Now, it sounds a little emotional or out there, but if you want to have a long-term success and long-term relationships with your customers, these are the kind of things you're going to have to do to really build that with your customers. And that's the place you want to be. You want to be at the bottom of the funnel and a long-term protected relationship. Because then when they see an advertisement for somebody else, they're not going to care because they already have a product that they believe in well. That it's okay for your customers to get a good value or a good product or to get some kind of discount and for you to make a small profit too. It doesn't have to be either or, and to really work together. Now, one example of this not happening is in the record industry. For years, record companies were in control of the technology and the way to distribute music through albums and records. So in the past, if you wanted to listen to music, I mean, you could listen to radio stations, but you really had to buy a record or then later CDs or cassettes from a record company. And record companies were, because they controlled that content and they had the technology to control it, they're able to charge very high prices for what they own. But what happened was when the population was empowered to do this on their own through digital media, things like MP3s, they did. And they felt like they'd been taken advantage of by the record industry for so long, they didn't feel bad about copying or pirating music through services like Napster. So it was kind of tough when the record companies were saying, hey, and they had, you know, commercials and things like that saying, you really should be paying for this, it's not fair, and don't be stealing music. Well, a lot of people justified it by saying, hey, you took advantage of us for so long, you know, we don't really feel bad doing this. And I'm not saying that that's okay or ethical, but I am saying that the record companies really put themselves in that situation by taking advantage of their customers rather than building relationships with them. Why? Because they could. They felt like they had the technology and it was always going to stay that way. Now, you're going to need to learn the lesson of Napster. If you are in an industry that's like that and you feel like you've got some kind of privileged information or technology and you can charge whatever you want for it and it doesn't really matter what it's doing to your customers or how much money you're charging them, and they're not going to be angry about it, there's nothing you can do about it, sooner or later it's going to come back to haunt you, especially in this day and age when those kind of things are changing. Technology is changing, people's ability to control content is changing. One area this is going to happen, it's starting to happen already, is with doctors, because doctors are able to charge a lot of money because they have very specialized information and education. But the internet, once again, makes that information and education available to a wider audience. So you don't need to rely on doctors as much for that privileged information. Same with lawyers. They're able to charge a lot of money because they have certain privileged information and education that's not available to the general public unless you go through a degree program and things like that. But my warning to both of these industries is they better wisen up a little bit, start to build relationships with their customers. If that has to do with better service or lowering prices, whatever that means, they better watch out or they're going to get Napsterized. And you need to think about that too as you're building your companies or your particular product. How are you building relationships with your customers? Relationships are very important. Human beings crave relationships. If you think about it, in jail or in prison, what's the worst punishment that they can give to somebody? It's solitary confinement. The reason is that people are built to be around other people and to live in a relationship with other people. They really crave it. And that's why when we're talking about this, it's a real principle that people are looking to build relationships with other people. And again, this comes back to why personal selling is so important and why it's so important to have a trained sales staff and for you as a company to invest in your salespeople to make sure that as they are the relationship builders in your company, that they know what they're doing and you've got the right people in place. So as we talk about this, key 5, building relationships, this is a key strategy in your marketing promotions because building a strong, protected relationship is a great long-term strategy, is what's going to keep customers with you. It's also going to help build customers into the future. And one of the ways to make sure your relationship is going okay is to get feedback from the people that you're talking to and make sure that you're on the right track. And that's key 6 that we'll talk about tomorrow.